Hello everyone, in this video we're going to draw a cow. First we'll draw a few simple shapes for structure, then we'll add the final result on top using easy line work, and then we'll color the drawing for the final result. I'll include a link for the materials used in the description below. Let's jump in. Start by drawing a circle as a guide for the front part of the body. And an easy way to draw a circle is to first make a couple of small marks to indicate the height of the circle. And then on the sides, make a couple more small marks to indicate the circle's width. Then just connect the small marks using curved lines to finish the shape of the circle. And sketch lightly at first so that it's easy to erase if you make a mistake. Also pause the video as you follow along to draw at your own pace. And you don't have to draw a perfect circle, but if you're having trouble drawing one, it's okay to trace the outer edge of a cup, or a lid, or anything else with a circular edge. And to the right, draw another circle as a guide for the back portion of the body. And draw this circle using the small marks method too, so first make a few small marks to indicate the sides of the circle, and then connect the small marks using curved lines to finish the shape of the circle. And this circle should be about 2/3 the size of the first circle. On the bottom left side, draw another circle as a guide for the head. And use the small marks method to draw this circle as well. And the cow will be grazing, so draw this circle slightly below the other two circles. And make this circle smaller. It should be about 1/4 or 1/5 the size of the first circle. And below the head circle, make a small mark for the first part of the muzzle. And pay attention to the distance between this mark and the head circle. And then connect the small mark to the circle using a couple of curved lines to finish the guide for the muzzle. Now draw a long vertical line across the entire head for a construction guide. And this guide will help you place the facial features later. And on the top right side of the head, draw a small arc as a guide for the first ear. And the ear should be pretty big in relation to the head. And to the left, draw another arc, but tilt it slightly to the left as a guide for the other ear. Under the front part of the body, draw a long vertical line as a guide for the front leg. And bend the leg slightly near the top to create a joint. The bottom tip of this leg should be somewhat level to the bottom edge of the muzzle. And to the left, draw another vertical line as a guide for the other front leg. And below the back portion of the body, draw another long vertical line as a guide for the hind leg. The legs should be very long in relation to the body. And to the left, draw a tilted vertical line as a guide for the other hind leg. And now connect the two body circles using a couple of shorter lines to finish the guide for the torso. And curve the line at the bottom to create that big barrel-like shape of the body. Connect the head to the body using a couple of sloping lines to create the guide for the neck. And the line at the top should be longer than the line at the bottom. And that's it for the guidelines. Now let's start on the final drawing. Inside the head, lightly sketch a small oval for the eye. And place the eye to the left of the construction guide. And draw the eye small in relation to the head. And when you get the size and position of the eye right, darken the shape. And the resulting shape of the eye should be somewhat similar to a football. And inside the eye, draw a tiny circle to represent a highlight. And draw a couple of curved lines around the eye for creases on the skin. And slightly higher, draw a slightly longer curved line to emphasize the shape of the brow. Then add a small curved line at the bottom for another crease. Now draw the shape of the muzzle along the basic path of the initial guideline at the bottom. And make the left side slightly more angular for the nostril. And on the right side, curve the line up to create the shape of the mouth. And then add a shorter angled line to the right for the visible section of the lower lip. And inside the muzzle, draw a thin pointy shape for the nostril. Now darken the arc on the top right side of the head to create the first ear. And make the shape of the arc slightly more narrow at the bottom than the initial guideline. And draw a couple of short lines within the shape for the ear's opening and for the furry texture inside the ear. And now darken the arc on the right to create the other ear. And inside the shape, draw a couple of short lines for the ear's furry opening. And now use the remaining shapes and lines as guides to draw the rest of the head. And at the top, draw a small rectangular shape for the top part of the head. Notice that the top part of the head is actually higher than the initial circle. And bend the sides of this shape down toward the ears. And along the bottom part of this rectangular shape, draw a few short lines for a bit of fur. Now darken the left side of the head along the basic path of the guidelines, but curve the line a bit more to create the structure of the brow. So the edge of the head should be a bit thinner than the initial guidelines. And the bottom part of this line should connect to the muzzle at the bottom. And on the right side, darken the edges of the guides to create the lower edge of the head. And curve the line toward the ear to create the strong jaw muscles. Add a couple of lines inside the head to give the head a bit more structure. And if you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And now let's move on to the body. Now use the second line from the left that's under the body as a guide to draw the front leg. And first, lightly sketch the shape of the leg around the guideline. Keep the edges of the leg close to the guide so that the shape is thin. And at the bottom, make the shape flat for the hoof. And when you get the shape of the leg right, darken the lines. And add a couple of angled lines at the top to create the muscle structure. And near the middle of the leg, draw a curved shape to create a joint on the leg. And draw a smaller curved shape near the bottom too for another joint on the leg. And at the bottom, make the shape flat and square-like for the hoof. And draw a small triangular shape at the very bottom to split the hoof. Now use the line on the left as a guide to draw the other front leg. And first, draw the shape of the leg around the guideline. And make the overall shape of the leg thin. And when you get the shape of the leg right, darken the lines. And curve the lines as you darken them to create the joints on the leg. A big part of this leg will be hidden behind the body, so only draw the visible section. And at the bottom, draw a small triangular shape to split the hoof. Now use the long line on the far right side as a guide to draw the hind leg the same way. And just like with the front legs, first lightly sketch the shape of the hind leg around the guideline. And make the top of this leg wider than the bottom. And when you get the shape of the hind leg right, darken the lines. And at the bottom, draw a small square-like shape for the hoof. And now use the sloping line to the left as a guide to draw the other hind leg. But before we draw that leg, lightly sketch a curved horizontal line near the top just to indicate where the udder will be. And then just follow the basic path of the sloping line to create the shape of the leg. And draw the shape of the leg around the guideline but keep the shape thin. And now use the remaining shapes and lines as guides to draw the rest of the body. Draw the bottom edge of the front part of the body slightly lower than the initial circle to create the big chest. And darken the line on top of the head to create the top part of the neck, and draw the top part of this line inside the big circle. And then bend the line up to create the top part of the body. And make the top part of this section of the body slightly higher than the circle to create a sort of hump-like shape. And on the right side, draw a couple of angled lines to create the bony section on the back portion of the body. And draw this part of the body slightly farther away from the initial circle to make the shape wider. And darken the underside of the body and connect the top part to the leg. And at the bottom between the legs, draw the shape of the udder. And first draw a couple of small U-shaped lines for the teats. And then darken the initial line for the rest of the udder. Part of the udder will be hidden behind the first hind legs, so only draw the visible section. And on the right side, draw a couple of sloping lines to create the visible section of the tail. And at the bottom, draw a couple more curved lines to create the hair on the tip of the tail. And that's it for the main part of the cow, and now let's move on to finalize the drawing. Erase the initial guidelines for a cleaner drawing. And you can use a kneaded eraser to make your drawing cleaner. And redraw any of the final lines that you may have accidentally erased. Now go over the final lines with permanent ink. And take your time and be careful when you ink your drawing to avoid any accidents. And at the bottom, draw a couple of short vertical strokes to create some grass. And when the ink dries, erase all of the guidelines. And now color your drawing. Use dark gray to outline the pattern across the body. And your pattern doesn't have to look exactly like mine, so just add random big spots across the body. And then fill in the sections using gray. Now add a few shadows across the pattern using darker gray. The shadows will give the figure more dimension and volume. And this will also emphasize the muscle structure on the body. Continue to add darker gray to make the pattern darker. Use a bit of light pink on the muzzle and on the udder. Now add a bit of light brown across the white sections of the body for more shadows. Use light shades of brown first, then gradually build up to darker shades. Slowly and gradually add darker gray to create darker shadows on the body. Pick a light source as you color so that the shadows are consistent throughout the body. Here the light source is coming from the top, so most of the shadows will be on the undersides of the shapes. At the bottom, draw a grassy texture using different shades of green. And darken the final lines to emphasize the shapes. Keep coloring until you're happy with the result. And that's it for the cow. Remember to pause the video to draw at your own pace. Also, please visit howtodrawanimals.com for more tutorials. That's how, and then the number 2, then drawanimals.com. If you'd like to support my channel, please consider buying my books on Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description below. Let me know in the comments what other animals you want to see me draw. Don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep drawing.